Welcome to today's podcast, Healing Through Love, with Dr. Matt Singer, a holistic medicine specialist with an expertise in energy work, homeopathy, and works with people all around the world to help them remove emotions trapped in the body. And co-host Holly Celiano, a mother, intuitive healer, and well known to international audiences as a resource for truth seekers on a variety of global concerns that are currently impacting humanity. Today's focus, the hero's journey.
Good morning, everyone. I am Holly Celiano, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Matthew Singer. And today we have a special guest on, Jeffrey Louis Martinez, and he's a spiritual self-empowerment coach, transcendental guide, personal business consultant, motivational blogger, and content creator. Known to his clients as the Buddha Bro, he is a multi-certified professional with a master's in spiritual psychology. For the past 7 years, he has run a popular, inspirational, pop culture-based blog called The New Age Nerd, during which time it has reached over 1 million people around the world. His new podcast, The Buddha Bro Show, will launch in October, with the mission of assisting divinely masculine in awakening to their super heroic higher selves, the space in which anything is possible and life becomes filled with infinite magic and miracles, with the collective purpose of transitioning this planet away from hate, fear, greed, oppression, prejudice, and back to love. So good morning, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us on the show, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, listen, the pleasure is all mine. I'm humbled that you reached out. And you know what? It's not very often that I have someone read back to me my mission. Wow, that's a pretty big job.
It is.
that I set up for myself. But no, I am thrilled to be here. And I know we're going to talk about the hero's journey today, which is something that's impacted my life so much. And my intention for all the viewers out there is that I can add a little bit of insight, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of guidance, so that you can be courageous enough to take your own call to adventure and go on your own hero's journey. Because boy, oh boy, does this world need more heroes.
So why don't you tell us about your hero's journey and what that means to you and how your hero's journey was in your life that impacted you?
Oh boy. So I grew up, I like to say I've gone through the buffet line of life. I have 4 serious chronic illnesses, a heart aneurysm, COPD. Never met my father. He abandoned the family, went to work one day and never came back when I was 2 years old. I've spent almost a little over a year of my life in the hospital. So tons of trials and tribulations. And so when I was younger, modern myth, going to movies. In fact, I have my Star Wars shirt on to kind of commiserate with that. That was a way out for me in which I could see the world in a completely different manner, of infinite possibilities, of guidance. It allowed me to believe that my current circumstances as a child, which were so riled with pain and anguish from all levels, that there was infinite possibility for my life. That did not have to be the end all be all of my existence. And so it kind of started there. I walked into the theater back in 1977 and saw Star Wars, went back and saw it in the theater 19 more times before it left the theater. And so as I started getting older and older and older, the cumulative effect of all of these trials and tribulations just really started taking a spiritual, psychic, emotional toll on me. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I was blessed enough to have some sports agility and ability. So I was a junior, I guess, in high school, and all of a sudden I was 6 feet tall and I couldn't weigh over 137 pounds. I would eat and eat and eat. And so we were having some scouts from some professional teams come and look at us. And a couple of days before that, I collapsed on the baseball field, and we found out that I had Crohn's disease. And it was serious enough that kind of unfortunately put my baseball career on hold. And I from that point forward, I was totally lost because that was in my mindset. I wanted to be Eddie Murray, who was the first baseman for the Baltimore Orioles. That was my goal, and that was stripped away from me. And so I ended up with the Crohn's disease back in, I guess, 1997. I ended up in the hospital, had to have my colon removed, and had to wear a colostomy bag. It was just a horrendous thing. I went from, I think at my lowest, I got down to about 115 pounds. And I actually had a near-death experience, which I won't go into fully here, but I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the other side and to be shown some of the secrets to the universe as far as the quantum realm is concerned, as far as how to tap into healing abilities. Things like Jesus the Christ, after all of his miracles, he was likely to say, "This and so much more, one day you too shall do." And so I was able to kind of see a glimpse of how to manifest that in the human condition. Now, it took me several years to kind of fully put that into place. And so for me, everything culminated at my lowest point back in 2012. All my illnesses had kind of flared up at the same time. I lost my job and my health insurance, so I couldn't get the medications that I needed. I ended up broke, evicted, living in the basement of my parents at age 42. Not exactly what I put on my vision board at that time in my life. And so I had the darkest night of the soul one evening, and I literally was suicidal. I couldn't take it anymore. And the last straw, I had rescued a dog off the streets, and that night I go outside and he was peeing all over the place. And I was like, you know what? I think this dog is really, really sick with something. And of course I had no money. And I said, Lord, please help me. I can't take it anymore. And I came into my bedroom and I literally fell down on my knees. I put my hands up and I just started crying and just bawling my eyes out, thinking about the manner in which I could take my life. And my tears had gotten to the point my eyes were burning. So I got up and I walked past my bookshelf. And I had bought a book several years ago called Pathways to Bliss by Joseph Campbell. My friends had told me, Jeff, you've got to get into Joseph Campbell. He's something right up your alley. And for whatever reason, I had not up to that point. I don't know if you two have ever experienced this, but where a book literally calls to you, it almost illuminates. So I'm walking past the bookshelf and that's white, it had a pristine white cover. And it just called me. It was almost like it was glowing. And I grabbed it and got some tears, the tissue, wiped the tears. And I opened it up, and right there to the page I opened it up, it said, your trials and all your tribulations are for you to be able to conquer the trials and tribulations of your life so that you can inspire, gain wisdom, gain empathy, all of the things you're going to need so that you can assist other people. As Carl Jung said, it is he who is afflicted with the malady who is best suited to treat it. Well, let me tell you, I was suited to treat everything, I think, at that point. And so I spent all night long reading this book, all about the hero's journey. As you probably know, Joseph Campbell is the person who coined that term. And it completely changed my life. I went from victim consciousness of why is this happening to me to, oh my gosh, this is all happening for me and through me. And I thought to myself, if I'm going through this big of a mess, I must be truly blessed because I've got a higher calling to go after. And there are people that I have prior to coming here that I promised I would go and help, and they're still waiting for me. And I thought, I can't let those people down. So that was really the beginning. Hold on, my mouth's a little dry. So that was the beginning of me completely immersing myself into a new paradigm shift of living the hero's journey, which of course we're all living in a different, side of it. That's his first book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. But for me, literally, the depression lifted. And I started going into my path as a transcendental coach, spiritual teacher, blogger, and here I am talking to you, good fellas and ladies.
Jeff, it's amazing. I love that story, and I'm right with you. And as a holistic doctor, that's what I live by: is when we get that inner strength, that inner power to where we get told that we are the healer. That's where everything changes. So when you're on your knees crying, I mean, trust me, I know what that's like. And then that's where we're almost like downloaded our power and our gift. When you hit that point and you were reading that book, how quickly did your body start healing after that?
It did start healing, and we can kind of go on to how I've gotten into the Joe Dispenza work and the quantum field. But it absolutely, I think the first thing that it started healing was my emotional mindset, the emotional trauma that I had been carrying from even a little child and the abandonment of my father to that very moment. And listen, I always say that we are not the cause of our disease, but we are responsible to it. Even if we are partially or fully responsible to our dis-ease, it doesn't help anybody to say, oh, I caused it. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I kind of look at emotional healing, where again I go from a victim mentality to being victoriously heroic. And to be honest with you, that happened instantaneously after I read that book. I put it down, and that victim consciousness disappeared and melted back into the ether. And in fact, a Batman is kind of my spiritual totem. And I kind of went into, you know what? I have the ability to be the Batman, as we all do. So from that standpoint, yeah, instantaneously.
Beautiful. I love it. And when you were mentioning Joe Dispenza, I mean, there was a point in my life where I know when I was being in chiropractic school, I had known about Joe Dispenza as a chiropractor, and I probably was given his material, and people had spoken to me about him probably 30 times, and for whatever reason, I didn't look into it. And then, just like you, when I felt like I was at my lowest point, I had this inspiration that just said, pick up that book and start reading it. And that was the same thing. That was the turning point where it almost allows us to remember who we are, our power. That's amazing.
Absolutely. When I'm talking to potential clients and kind of offering them my differential point of how I'm separate from all the other coaches out there, really what I say is I coach superheroes. And I know right now it's kind of in vogue, the last 12 years with Marvel to say with superheroes. I started doing it before this big explosion happened. I kind of took the hero's journey and just kind of added the super aspect to it, because here's my mission and ardent belief when I wake up every single morning. Yes, the world is in disarray. We all know it. Everything from climate disruption to the fear of AI, social justice unrest, the fact that 1% of the population controls over 50% of the world's wealth. The pain is unbelievable. But here's why I'm hopeful, and I always will be, because each of us was given a specific mission to accomplish when we manifested into the human condition. The most studies that have been done is that 3 to at maximum 5% of the people on this planet are currently following that mission. Well, you tell me what's going to happen if only 3 to 5% of the entire world is following that. No wonder we have depression and greed and fear and separation. But so what I tell people is, you have a super heroic higher self. As Yoda said, you are not this flesh. You are the force. You are the source itself. And the greatest gift that you can give to the world is to reconnect with your true essence, which is the connection to the grand creator, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it, and step into your own call to adventure, because we have the answers to most of the world's ills. The problem is it's stuck inside 95% of the human population. So what I try and do is offer that gift of exploration of development, of connection to who that person is. Their own. I give everybody their own superhero's name. Their own superhero will have a cartoonist come in and draw them so that they can literally live in that essence, then feel that power, feel that connection to source, in which, the limitations don't even exist. The ceiling isn't the top. The ceiling is just the beginning of your power. So that's kind of, if that makes sense, that's kind of how I live my life, and it's how I'm trying to set an example for others. I always say one of the saddest places to go to is a graveyard, and not because of all of the lives lived that have passed, but all of the missions not taken.
Mm-hmm. So Jeff, your story, as you and I were talking last night, we parallel a lot where, we have this malady in life that just keeps hitting us. And then, it is living in that victim consciousness, because I used to live that as well. And then you reach a point where you shift. And when you make that shift, your life starts transitioning to a whole nother way of living and being. And as, Matt and I have discussed, it's those emotions that are trapped in the body that keep us trapped in that victim mentality. And once you clear that, you start healing. So you were talking about that everybody has this pivotal moment to be their true empowered essence on the planet, to tap into their mission. How do you recommend people right now that are living in that victim consciousness make that shift, tap into their mission? Because we all have a mission, what we're here to do. How do you tap into that? How do you get people there?
That is wonderful, and I'm hoping that a lot of people watching today will do this. I actually have people, one of the first things I have them do is to create a new hero origin story. In most of the superhero movies, or any movie really, because there's a hero or a heroine in every single film, but especially in superhero films, there's always an origin story. So what I tell my clients to do, and I hope, again, a lot of people will do this once hearing it, I have them go back in their life and to transcend and reframe all of the things that happened to them that caused pain points that are still coming up in patterns in their life, and to find meaning. And as Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, if you haven't read it, it's a must read. He always, or one of his famous things from the book was, suffering transcends into pain the moment we find meaning in our suffering. So suffering turns into pain the moment that we find meaning in it. So what the goal of that new origin story is to help them uncover the meaning with regards to whatever trials and tribulations that they have gone through. And that starts that shift, that subtle shift into, this happened to me, why me, poor me, into, oh my gosh, now I get why that cancer had to come into my life. I had to learn to overcome, to be courageous, to have faith, to step into my power, allow other people the gift of helping me as caretakers. There's, in some ways, there's no better gift to offer someone who wants to extend a hand to you. So that's kind of the beginning process that I do, is just having them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And, I can't agree with you more. And so many times, and I'm sure you understand, like people like Abraham and Bashar, and other mediums and other books, people have said, even I've heard Joe Dispenza, people ask him, why did this 2-year-old child get this cancer and die? They said it wasn't for the child, it was for the parents.
Say it louder for the people in the back, because that is 100% true. And the one thing is, we don't know. We all come with a soul contract, really, and the thing is, we never know what another person's soul contract may be. So that's why I always share with people, always compassion, but never pity, because For instance, you could even have stillborns or babies who only live a day or two and pass away. And absolutely offering compassion in that moment. People don't want to hear right then, oh, it's happening, for you. But eventually they're maybe ready and more open to hear that. But I always think, oh my gosh, perhaps that soul in this one incarnation just wanted to experience what a day or two in this realm would be like, and then go back. And that might be hard for us to comprehend. But again, the Here with 1,000 Faces, there are a billion different ways that we can come down here and live our own journey. And who is to judge that? Who is to say that we're on the right path? I always say, don't ever give advice, because suggestions is okay, but giving advice is insulting to the soul. Mm-hmm. And because again, no one knows your own truth but you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's such a powerful quote. Giving advice is an insult to the soul. I love it.
Yeah, it's when I was getting my master's in spiritual psychology, we talked about that a lot, in the manner in which, when you're counseling someone, coaching someone, mentoring someone, how you can give them guidance. My goal is this: when I'm working with someone or a group of people, I want to guide them as much as I can, offer as much love, compassion, wisdom, hard-fought wisdom. But I want them to get to a place where they have that aha moment, where we talked about, where they reconnect with their superheroic higher selves, but they feel like they were never led. They felt like they did it themselves. Because if you're a coach or a mentor and you don't offer someone that, I always say a coach during the process, it's about accountability, but you want to release that client in responsibility. Big difference. So to me, if you can get to a point where you can guide someone back to their own truth, where they can discover their own passions, their own superpowers, and they feel like they kind of did it themselves, hallelujah, you have just sent someone out into the world who's going to be a rock star.
So in our healing journey on my path, what I have seen is, if you're not on your path, you will have things constantly show up that seem quote unquote bad, but there's really no bad nor good. They're just experiences. And it is the wake up call from universe to put you back on your mission, what we're all here for. And if you're not on that mission, you're going to keep getting those nudgings to put you on your path. And once you're on that path, that's when you're in the flow, and everything starts flowing and happening in a with ease and grace. And that's where you're in the abundance, and everything starts showing up for you because you're on your path, you're on your mission, you're not fighting upstream, resisting what your true mission is. And anybody that's had that, when you're in that flow, you can see, I wasn't on the right path prior, and now I am.
I couldn't have said it better. I think like the late great Kobe Bryant said, he said, in order, and this was kind of circling back really quickly to your question, if I didn't fully answer it, as far as how I assist people, discover what your passions are, and then play in that play box of your passions until one or more of them become an obsession. And then once a passion becomes an obsession, so what does an obsession look like? An obsession is flow. Let's say you're a writer, and all of a sudden you start writing, you look up at the clock and 4 hours have passed, and it seems like 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. That is okay, that I'm onto something here. Or if you're, and again, it could be a myriad of things, a billion different ways. But yes, there's 2 ways that you can move forward in life, especially if you're stuck. You can get to a point where the pain of not moving is superior to the pain of taking that call to adventure, even if you're scared, if you're broke, if you're, whatever your circumstances may be. Or you can decide to be a fuddy-duddy about it and say, no, I'm going to refuse the call every time it comes in, because it will come in through messages, through the television, through the next song that you hear, an old friend who all of a sudden picks up the phone and calls you, going to a movie theater, just so many amazing ways that the universe speaks to us if we just listen. Because the second way for the most of us that this shift will happen, the universe will kick you, pardon my French, in the ass.
Yes.
And that is no fun, because I will be the first one to tell you that my butt I'm sitting on a pad because my butt has been kicked so many times till I finally got that gumption to say, you know what, the call to adventure, I've got to take this. Does that resonate?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, Jeff, this is amazing. So, and I agree with you about the pad for your ass, because I had to get a crowbar to pull my head out of my ass so many times. But so let me ask you this in terms of the hero's journey. Let me ask your opinion on this. One of the most powerful mantras I've ever learned was, we can get stuck in a circumstance, and then the ego can keep focusing on the circumstance of what happened to us, just like Joe Dispenza says, and we can keep focusing on it. And then our thoughts create our emotions, creates our personality and our stress, and it keeps getting stronger and stronger. One of the most powerful mantras I ever learned was that the circumstance doesn't matter. What matters is our state of being. So for the hero's journey, when we can master our state of being, now we're mastering our energy, right?
Yeah, 100%. And offline yesterday, I found out that you're also a fan of Dr. Dispenza. And I'll tell a little story about that here shortly. His work has definitely been such a game changer for me. I think the other day, to your point, one thing that Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, of course, he was a fan of, but also Friedrich Nietzsche. And one of the things that he took from him was, be a yes sayer. Mm-hmm. Anything that comes into your life, say, yes, this is exactly what I need, as if you actually drew it on a calendar before it happened in a future moment of now. So when it comes, you're like, yes, thank you, finally. This is exactly what I need. Yes, it may be tough and painful, and I might be right now not have the answers of how to get out of it. But once you can kind of settle into that vibration, I think that completely shifts you out of the victim, consciousness. But yes, and I'll go into this work now. Maybe this is the perfect time to segue into this story. Hold on one second. So at one point, I was on 17 different medications. Mm-hmm. The people at Walmart knew me so well that every time I called them, even there was eight people working there, would say, "Oh, Mr. Martinez, how are you?" And all I said was hello, but they knew my voice so well. And so, 17, it was hard to even juggle all of those. And so I made some life changes. One, I became a vegetarian, cut out all, obviously, alcohol, not that I was a big drinker. But then the final piece of the puzzle was a lot of the Joe Dispenza work and going in, meditating, going into the quantum field in which you become, as you become nobody, no name, no job, no accolades. You literally become one with the force, if you will, one with the source. And once you're there, it's interesting, because the more that I've done it, here's what I know, that I am in that becoming one again with source. The feeling that comes to me is better than the combination of the best food you've ever had, the best sex you've ever had, the deepest laugh you've ever had, the warmest hug that you've ever had, kissing like it's like you've never kissed before. And it's just an amalgam of all of those things just flooding into your existence at once. And as I started doing this, I am down now to only 3 medications from 17.
Amazing.
I had a heart aneurysm that had grown to, because of all the chronic stress, that had gotten to 4.8 centimeters. As you may know, once you hit 5, it's open heart surgery.
Yes.
I've shrunk it in half.
Yeah.
It's only 2.5 centimeters now. And guess what? The two of you, and I know you probably know this, and every single person who's watching this or will watch it, you can do the same exact thing. There's nothing that I have that, the ability that you don't have. And once you can wake up every single day with awe and wonder of the possibilities ahead. I always tell people, most people wake up in the morning, the first thing that they do is they grab their cell phone, they go through emails, texts, and everything else, and they literally set their day up for chaos and anxiety rather than possibility and potential. Yeah. And once you can make it, have lots of different ways. Maybe if I'm lucky enough to be invited on the show again, we can kind of go into those things. But I have literally dumbfounded my team of doctors. They told me another illness I have is something called ankylosing spondylitis, which is one of the most severe forms of arthritis. It fuses your spine. So I have several fusion places. So they told me that I would end up I'll be 54 in October. And they told me by this time I should be in a wheelchair, that I'd probably have to go back to a colostomy bag. I'm 6 feet tall and 210 pounds. And they're just like, this is not, what is going on here? So I've opened up a lot of eyes, even into the medical community, of the people who, in fact, the person who works on my arthritis, he's called in people to say, hey, Jeff, tell them your story, because I want them to be showered in the possibility for what their patients can overcome. And I'm so humbled every time they do that, because I can sit here at the same time and be all, oh yes, and I'm Zen, and I've been able to do this, that, and the other. I have earned every single thread on my superhero cape, as anyone does who's brave enough to go on the hero's journey.
Yes.
So the key with this, for everybody listening, we are our own healers. You have the ability within us to heal ourselves of anything, but it all starts with your belief system. So if you believe with every fabric of your being that you can heal whatever the doctors say it's incurable, or you're going to be in a wheelchair, if you accept whatever their determination is of whatever you're dealing with health-wise, then your body then resigns itself to that. But if your belief system says, I'm my own healer, I'm not going to accept that. I know I can heal anything in my body that I have, and your entire being shifts into that, finding the possibilities outside the realm, and in that infinite possibilities, which is what you do, you can heal anything regardless of how severe it is. Yes. And you're doing that.
Yeah. And Holly, it's so true. And this is what I love. This is what I love about the body is, I've come to see such a power in the body from being a doctor for so long. And, when I have patients that are sitting in my office and they have some kind of an autoimmune or some serious disease going on, I put it to them this way. And talking about the hero's journey, this is the ultimate hero's journey, because it's them. And I say, have you ever cut your finger before? And they say, yeah. I said, did you ever doubt it was going to heal? And they said, no. I said, well, what's the difference between this and the disease you're facing? And then they look at me, they're like, I'm like, yeah, because you're making it bigger than it really is. If you make it the same energy as, I just know my finger is going to heal, and I just know that this ailment is going to heal, there's no difference. Now we're activating that power. And that's the ultimate hero's journey, when we finally realize, oh my gosh, I'm the power.
1,000%. And that's kind of like the placebo effect, right? With regards to our belief systems and so forth. Story, again, getting back to modern myth, story is such a big part of the hero's journey. And it's one of the biggest part of life. At least part of what I went through in my near-death experience was, tell us about your story so far. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, the spirits, the celestial spirits, stop what they were doing and sit down, because what do you think the 5 most powerful words that you can string together are? Let me tell you a story. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been into a big auditorium, you've had a speaker, they can talk and say this, put up stats, do whatever. when is it that people really tune in for the most part? The second they say, you know what, let me tell you a story. And people come in, because at the end of the day, to both of yours point, brilliantly expressed, everything is about the story, the stories that we've been told, the stories that we love, the stories that we believe in, the stories we tell ourselves, and the stories that people tell us about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That really is the game changer. That's the thing. So again, that's why I have people redo an origin story for themselves, because they have been telling themselves a story that's not even true for the most part.
Yes.
So if they can go back and revisit that moment and change the story, change the narrative, my goodness gracious, all of a sudden, to your point, you start connecting with things and you're like, oh my gosh, I have been guided. I always say that, we're constantly circling our calling. So for instance, with me, I have been, throughout my travels, I have been a sports broadcaster and producer. I've been a stand-up comedian. I've done media sales. I have been a professional writer. I have been in entertainment, media, advertising. And then I literally got to a point where I'm like, gosh, what's going on? Am I going to go and be an accountant and then try and become an astronaut now? Like, they almost seemed disjointed at the time, until, again, 2012, when I had my dark night of the soul. And I said, no, my life hasn't been just this chaotic, disparate events. This is exactly what I needed. So for instance, now I'm using my writing in my blog. I'm using all my broadcast confidence to do podcasts and start my own show here soon. I'm using, comedy when I write or when I go out and try and make people laugh. And I'm like, I was circling my calling for 42 years until it just finally hit. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of getting kicked in the butt. I'm moving forward. And to your point, the second, the universe favors the bold, right? So the second that you commit, your spirit guides, your ancestors, your beings, whatever you want to call it, they rush into your experience. They're like, finally, you've taken the ropes off of my hands that have been handcuffed. And all of a sudden, they start syncing up. You already expressed this so beautifully. Synchronicities start happening as though they're commonplace. People start coming out of the blue. This happened with you and I, and why I'm on the show today. I post on Facebook every day between 15 and 20 inspirational, motivational quotes. And one of them went viral about a month ago, and all of a sudden I'm getting DMs every single day from people, no exaggeration. They're saying, Jeff, I was thinking about hurting or killing myself. I got 2 of those in the last week, until I got to your Facebook page and started reading your content. It's given me enough hope to keep on going. So I say that not in trying to, in any way, shape, or form, put myself on a pedestal, but because it is the smallest of gestures that keeps the darkness at bay. Mm. Sometimes we don't want to move forward because we think, what if I make this change? What if I create this little habit? What if I start eating meat less? What is that really going to do in the big scope of things? You know what I've learned? A hell of a lot.
Absolutely. And it's so, what you just said is so impactful, because that to you, when you put out that motivational quote, we don't really see the impact, but that one phrase saves somebody's life. Someone about to take their own life, and then they read what you wrote, and now that person completely changes the course of their life. And like, as you're saying, now they're going to be able to bless humanity, and then they're going to bless other people. And so it is so powerful. I know we only have like 5 minutes left, but this is, Jeff, I could talk to you for 20 hours. I mean, you're such an amazing soul. It's such a blessing to talk to you. But in these last 5 minutes or so, Holly, what do you think the most important question we can ask Jeff is?
I think for those listening, what when you talk about the hero's journey, let's go back and circle to that. What is exactly the hero's journey for people listening? Like, maybe break it down, the steps of what that truly is.
It's funny. That was something that I wanted to do. So absolutely. So as most people who are familiar, if you're not, with Joseph Campbell's hierarchy of the hero's journey, it's 12, sometimes 13 steps, but that can be so overwhelming to someone, especially someone who's in the middle of a storm. So I've broken it down into 3 digestible things, and that is separation, initiation, and the return. So what is separation? Separation is when we decide, and let me tell you something right now. If you are here in this moment, you are already a legend in the making, because this, out of all the different planets throughout the multiverse, this is one of the most challenging to be on, because we have to, our vibration has to slow down so much to become physical matter. It is daunting to the soul to have to slow down that much. So separation, first of all, is being brave enough to step up to source and say, I take on this challenge. I'll go down to earth, forget who I am, and go into that place of separation where I allow an ego to take over, and I feel like I'm separate from source, that everybody is out to get me, that everybody is in competition with me, being fearful, and having to go to that place of remembering of who you really are. And most of the time that really happens during what I call the inciting incident, which again is that period in your life where you kind of hit rock bottom. And again, a million different ways for a million different people. Some of it will be through a cacophony of things like I went through. Other people will be through a sickness, a divorce, a bankruptcy, lots of different things. And it's basically the universe's way of, again, kicking us in the butt and saying, you know what? You came down here for a mission, and you came down here for a calling. You have a tribe of people that you promised when you came down here that you would show up to help, and they are still waiting for you. And so the second is the initiation, and that is when you're brave enough to step out and to face your fears, to conquer your trials and tribulations, where you slay your dragon, the proverbial dragon, no matter what that looks like in your life. And that's where the wisdom comes in. I always like to say that's where the storm has come in. And when the storm starts to go back out into the sea, if you are brave enough to walk the spiritual shoreline, you will find all of the gifts that storm brought into your life, all of the wisdom, compassion, empathy, guidance, understanding, courage. And you can soak all that stuff up during the initiation stage. And then the final stage is the return, in which you take all of those gifts, all of that understanding, and you bring it back to your tribe, to the world, as a story to inspire others that they can do the exact same thing that you did. Because let me tell you something, there's only one thing that you need to have on your resume. I inspire. That's it. At the end of the day, all the other stuff is superfluous. And so my company motto is be super heroic, love, serve, inspire. So I've kind of broken it down into those 3 things. And many of us will have many heroes' journeys again and again and again. Again, every one of us, as Joseph Campbell said, the privilege of a lifetime is being you. Because no one of the trillions of people that have been on this planet, no one has come with your exact set of pain, trials, and tribulations, and no one has been given the exact mission that you have, no one. And no one has been given the superpowers to overcome, to take that mission, to fulfill it, and bring all the spoils of it back into the world. Does that kind of help?
Amazing.
Absolutely. And we are our own hero in our story of life. And it's really overcoming ourselves to come back to realize that we have everything inside of us, and we have to just face our fears. And that is the biggest thing I have discovered in my life. Facing all your fears because those control you. And once you face them head on, you realize there is nothing to fear anymore. I can conquer anything. I am my own hero. Anything you throw at me now, bring it on. I can face it. Yes. Matt, what do you have as a wrap up?
Well, so I mean, Jeff, this was such a pleasure to meet you. I mean, so the greatest takeaway from this is, you know, when you were saying when you finally have that moment and then you open up and surrender to your higher guides and your angels, they will come rushing to your aid. And it is so true. And it's something which, like Holly, you were saying, once you know that, once you know who's really on your side, there's no fear anymore. Then you become the creator. Instead of the victim or the fear, you become the empowerment. And I think that was so powerful, Jeff, and I can't thank you enough. And Holly, thank you so much.
No, I appreciate all you guys. Here's something I'll wrap up with regards to fear and especially failure, because let's be honest, a lot of fear is the fear of failure. So what I like to say is that failure doesn't exist. Failure is feedback in nature, and it is always instructional. Always instructional. So you basically, I love baseball. As I said, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Life is about getting up to bat with unlimited pitches. Mm-hmm. You can't strike out. It's just every single perceived failure is just instructional feedback from the universe. So once you can literally live that, it's easy to say it, but once you can incorporate that into your being, fear and failure starts to become something that you actually embrace, because you're like, I'm getting better. This is going to help me get better, stronger, more efficient. So maybe I can leave you guys with that.
I love it.
I want to just leave one thing that ties all this in. I saw a Facebook post this week of a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He had no legs. He was abandoned as a baby, in foster homes, beaten, sexually abused, and just so angry at the world. But something was a turning point for him where he decided that he would overcome all his challenges in life. And he was only in his 20s. And he went on to do things that were nobody should be able to do with his physical challenges. And his attitude was, I'm going to prove that I can overcome anything. There is nothing that will stop me, no matter that I don't have legs, that I have been through this horrific stuff as a child. I'm going to prove to the world we are, powerful beyond belief. We can overcome anything, and don't accept whatever life has given you to say you cannot be anything, regardless of your circumstances. And based on what you're saying, Jeff and Matt, as you and I have discussed, I mean, that ultimately is everybody's story to encompass in their life. Don't accept anything just because it's deemed bad.
Yes, absolutely true. It's so great. I can't thank you guys enough. And so Jeff, real quick for the listeners, for people who don't know, just tell them where they can find you, and if they want your services, just tell them like what your website is.
Yeah, so my website is my name, JeffreyLouisMartinez.com. You can also shoot me a personal email at Jeff Martinez, my name, no spaces, @me.com. You can go to Facebook, same thing, Jeffrey Louis Martinez. We've got a pretty nice community over there of people who get together with all my messages and my inspiration. Same thing on Instagram, Jeffrey Louis Martinez. And then you can go to my blog, which is just type in the New Age Nerd into Google. It'll be the first thing that pops up. I've been writing it for almost 8 years. We've got over 1,000 posts. And if you're into wanting to get into this work and make it a little bit more fun, and especially if you're into pop culture, I think you'll really enjoy it. I'm going to leave you guys with this. There's one last thing that I like to say to everybody, including myself, to start every day, and that is, today, go make something possible.
I love it. Well,
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
I've enjoyed
you.
talking.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining Healing Through Love. And please stay tuned for future shows and join us as we spread the power of love.